Welcome, because I'm here today to talk about in praise of being difficult. Sound a bit controversial? Good, because at least it got your attention. But this isn't a publicity stunt. This is my quiet, sincere call to action, my friends. But before I get stuck in, we'd love to know where you're watching from, either live or on replay. So do tell us your location in the comments. And I say us because I might be the only one on screen, but I am being supported brilliantly by my team who work their magic behind the scenes. So they make sure I don't fall off the screen, essentially. Now, in praise of being difficult, and the show's title is You're Not Difficult Enough. So I wonder what ran through your mind when you saw the title. I'd love to know. So please drop your first thoughts about You're Not Difficult Enough in the comments, and I'll respond to them afterwards if I don't get to them during the live show. And there may be times as well where my team share comments that are relevant at the time and may even be sharing some polls as we go through. So thinking about your first impression of You're Not Difficult Enough, I wonder what that first impression was. Was it intrigue? Was it disbelief? Was it exasperation? Was it something else altogether? Maybe, just maybe, there was a tiny part of you, tiny part that your inner rebel cheering you on, cheering for the fact that actually it's okay to be difficult. Who knows? But we'll soon find out as you share your first thoughts. It's only a few years ago that I would have shuddered at the very thought of being difficult, because my mostly good girl upbringing, coupled with my please others and be perfect drivers, made sure that I wasn't going to ruffle any feathers. And now, well, now I'm totally energized by the idea of being more difficult, because it means I'm not bending over backwards to keep the peace or make everyone else feel comfortable. I love how aging has helped me to be braver, to be kinder to myself, and to just be, well, more myself, actually. And just so you know, I'm pro-aging, especially when so many of those close to me have not made it this far. And some who have real life experience may also already be more themselves. They may have made that choice for themselves already. But, you know, when there's a combination of aging, so people who have lived longer, but have no real wisdom or growth because they've simply repeated the same patterns their whole life long, the ones that we're more likely to hear, I am who I am, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, actually you can, but the dog's got to want to learn. And there are far too many humans who don't want to learn or grow. And personally, I find them difficult, and you'll understand why in a moment. Now, I'm going to hazard a guess by saying that I doubt any of you, any of us, have ever been told we're not difficult enough. Convenient that, isn't it? I kind of chuckle to myself when I think about that, because I have images of people, especially women of a certain age, and in various settings around the globe, hearing the immortal words, "I do wish you'd be more difficult, dear." Can you imagine how often that doesn't happen, but maybe could? Because no matter how we choose to define difficult, it's going to include somewhere in the mix that someone doesn't meet my expectations. They don't do things my way, or hold the same views as me, or behave in ways that I think are acceptable. Notice the common denominator: self, me. It's not working for me. So in many ways, what people mean when they label someone as difficult is that they find that person hard to control. Well, good. None of us is the property of another, meaning we are not theirs to control, nor should we be. Handmaid's Tale types can take note. Control comes from in here, courtesy of the emotional regulation, boundaries, self-leadership, to name but a few of the contributing factors. And having no desire to control others or be controlled by others myself, that's when I notice I'm able to flourish. So it's important for me to clarify why I think we shouldn't be afraid of being thought of as difficult, and why it might actually be a good thing. I'm really not sure it's the problem that people make it out to be, but oh, how quickly a reputation for being difficult spreads. When I'm considered difficult, and I do think I probably need to start putting difficult in air quotes because it's so often misapplied, I'm not doing it just to be an arse or to piss you off. It's not with a view to making other people's lives more difficult either, but with a view to finally advocating for myself. It means I've stopped compromising who I am and what's important to me just to be compliant. It means I've stopped thinking about your comfort before my truth. It means I've found my assertiveness switch, boosted it with a dollop of courage, and tied it up with a bow of authenticity. And what a gift that is. Now more than ever before, I guess, when our world and all of us seem to be controlled by a small bunch of toxic, misogynistic, rich men, I think we all know who I'm referring to, being difficult, in my opinion, is increasingly essential. What does the protesters' placard say? You know it's serious when the introverts show up. Well, it's time to show up and be difficult about what matters to you and what this precious world of ours, what matters to them, to that world. Our predecessors did it facing rejection, ridicule, imprisonment, and worse. And today, people are facing the same risks right now for the big issues in the world. And I know there are people watching and listening, whether live or on catch up, who are also part of really making a stand for those things. And whilst I'm not inciting a riot, I am asking that we hold our position on what matters personally to us. Hold our position when it comes to the extroversion bias that is so prevalent in education, in business, and in society. hold our position when our good work is claimed by others. Hold our position when we're criticized for not being fun. Fun is so subjective anyway. I think it's time for us to get our sass on, to wake our feisty up and show our mettle. And if we're told we're too difficult, rather than taking that on wholesale and allowing it to diminish us and to drive us into obscurity, stay curious. I've found it's better if I explore what they mean by difficult rather than just jumping to conclusions, which is the easy option. And yes, I know we're meaning-making machines. We have to be. But inaccurate assumptions, untested, cause further problems rather than closing the perceived gap. Something I was told many years ago that has stuck with me has enabled me to hold my ground and stay in these types of conversations. Want me to share the gem? Okay, here goes. There's no such thing as a personality clash. The friction or tension lies in behavioral clashes. That one simple sentence shows how to begin to understand the root of the difficult. What is the behavior the other person is struggling to accept? What are we doing or saying that means they can't control us? In part, it comes down to having a level of maturity to be able to hold opposing opinions without resorting to hate and derision. If we only ever surround ourselves with people who think the same as we do, who behave as we do, who want the same things that we want, we've created a cult, not a diverse organization or society. There is very little in life that is absolute when it comes to right and wrong. Some things, but not a lot. We need to be able to explore, to debate and discuss our differences. We need to be able to ask for what we need without being labeled as difficult. And if that label is applied to us, if our intentions were honourable, I suggest we wear that label with pride rather than shunning it or being embarrassed about it. I'm happy to be known as being difficult to rush, difficult to shame, difficult to engage in gossip and hatred, difficult to manipulate, difficult to silence, difficult to control. I am my own person, and that is my right. And if I feel frustrated at being labelled unfairly, unjustly in my mind, feel the feelings, but don't simply settle into them like a pair of comfy slippers. When you do that, you think there's nothing you can do, but there is plenty, all of which involves you really to stop with the self-betrayal. There are times in my childhood when my dear old dad called me Contrary Mary. I can remember it. I can hear his voice as I say those words. And he said it with a bit of a wry smile. It wasn't in anger or to criticize. So there was a playfulness about him when he was saying it. I've always had a stubborn streak, but I don't think that was always what he was referring to. I think he was probably encouraging me, schooling me, if you like, to have my own opinions, to hold my line on things that mattered to me, to be a contrarian with good intent. Lesson learned, Dad. Lesson finally learned. So, this show, as you remember, is called Dropping Pebbles in the Pond. And it's time for today's pebble, the pebble that has far-reaching ripples. And the pebble that we're talking about today is that if being difficult protects what is sacred, so if it protects our energy, our values, our dignity, be difficult and wear that label with pride. So, pebble in the pond, ripples starting to ripple. I have a question or two that I'd like to ask though. So let me ask you this right now. Where and with whom do you need to be more difficult? I'm still using those air quotes in my mind, even if not on the screen, because we now know that being difficult is not a problem. And if you're still living an edited, sanitized, safe version of you, decide when you'll release the fullest version. Because I, for one, can't wait to meet that version of you. Thank you for joining me.